Good evening and welcome to Friday Night Blitz on live stream STL. We are live from Dugan Memorial Field in Herculaneum, Missouri, home to the Herculaneum Blackcats. We're taking on the Fredericktown Blackcats. It is the Black Cat night.
All the players pretty much know the system in and out, so it's just next man up, which seemed to be the theme from both coaches across the board.
Absolutely. And two teams here trying to find the first win. We know one thing. We've mentioned this before. A Black Cat's going to win tonight.
Yeah, I mean it's the next guy up. It can't be any excuses. So we'll see what we're made of tonight. It's a good opportunity for us. I know Fredericktown's pretty young, so are we. So next guy up's got to step up for us. That's all there is to it. So I kind of like some changes that we made on offense. We'll kind of see. If we can come out ready to rock and roll. I think if we can play football from the first horn, then we'll be okay. But we'll see how it goes.
This one now where you're 0-0 getting ready to go into halftime, almost of the opinion, could one score be the thing that wins this game?
Absolutely, but like I've said a couple times, I mean, the offense is clicking here. Like, they're having some good drives, solid plays, and they are keeping it simple.
So 3rd and 3, they do a direct snap to Peyton Light, and Peyton goes in for the touchdown for Herculaneum. So they went with just a little different package on that play, and that is a 3-yard run for Peyton Light. As the Herculaneum Blackcats on opening night for week 2 now have a 6-0 lead as we head into the Ruther Ford halftime show.
So far what I've seen from Herculaneum side, offenses look much better than last week, getting consistent drives.
Might be Black Cat Matt down there, Matt Lichtenstein, the communications director.
Double handoff, or double reverse handoff, and here is Galena. He's hog-tied and wrestled out of bounds by number 75. Dalton Queener chases that one from behind. Get a good throw off, but little high snap bobbles. They give it to Peyton Light. He sneaks through the second layer and brought down by number 9, Xander Stevens. Been used minimally at best tonight. Snap back, that goes through the quarterback. That's down at his feet. And that is a turnover recovered by the Herculaneum Blackcats at Dugan Memorial Field. Holland takes the snap. He's going to take it on his own. Shakes out a 1 tackle. Breaks through. Keeps going. Bangs down to the 15-yard line. And there was a fumble. Fumble on the play from Nolan Holland. Right before he went down, the ball comes out. That will be Herculaneum ball after a 9-yard pickup. I guess it has to do with, restricted mobility, but Brinkley lining it up. Here comes Mattingly straight up the gut. Being chased by Catchings. There's a flag in the secondary. But Mattingly on the wounded ankle takes it all the way down to the 25 from the Herculaneum 26-yard line. You got to run a play off of that, take advantage of that. But Mattingly, he's going to go straight up the gut. He's going to hobble in from the 18, and look at him on one wheel. I mean, now the hobble is really noticeable now. But he is able to reel off an 18-yard run with 5:02 left to go in this one. Is Galena, and they're going to get him just on the other side, so he was able to sneak that in for 2. Justice Clauser. So, yes, Mr. Ray.
You got some great fans down here at Herculaneum saying hello to the camera lady down there. That is the Miss Carmen Weir, Herculaneum alum.
As time's ticking off here, gentlemen, final 24 seconds. Any final thoughts as Herculaneum's going to seal this one up 14-0?
Yeah, I think we've been hitting on it right the last couple of minutes, but just a really good performance by Herky. I think to build from last week to this week, they found some offensive rhythm, and defensively just continued to hold up and do a really, really nice job. Coach Hunter has obviously put in some work this summer and into the fall, getting those guys ready. So got to feel good going into week 3 1-1 instead of 0-2.
Hey, we're catching up here with Coach Blane Boss from the Herculaneum Blackcats. How you doing, Coach?
Pretty well. Yourself?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Big 14-0 win over Fredericktown. Kind of had to change some things up. You didn't go with their number one. Didn't go with your number two, but your number three quarterback. And take us through maybe what changes you had to make in order to accommodate Brady Manley.
Uh, just him kind of learning the plays was the biggest thing since he's been playing a different position. So that was priority number one. Um, so he did he's a smart kid, so he did a great job with that. The other thing was just kind of making him feel comfortable, doing a lot of stuff kind of on his own as far as before and after practice, making some throws and different things like that. But he's an athlete. I mean, he's got a good arm. He actually probably throws the best ball on the team. So he kind of slid right in there and did a great job for us. Fortunately, we didn't have to rely on the pass a whole lot. You know, I think our line did a good enough job to keep moving the chains and sustain drives. There was a couple we sputtered out a little bit, but no, overall, you know, I was very happy with the way Braden played. Um, he led the team in rushing and he took care of the football. We kind of got lucky on one. He fumbled down on I think the 1 yard line. We were fortunate to recover that, but no, he did a heck of a job for us.
Absolutely. You talked about the touchdown that he put on there on the board. He threw a curveball at us with Shea Eberhardt. We thought that was Peyton Light on the broadcast, but threw Shea Eberhardt in there for the I believe it was like a 3 yard run. But good to get the senior. He probably doesn't play a whole lot of offense very much, but got him in there and got the job done. But the ground game was working most of the evening. I can understand that. So kudos for all of that. But take us through, halftime it was 6-0, and then you guys scored really, really late. It was very much a grind type of a game. But what were you telling your guys on the sidelines?
No, it was kind of similar to the week before. You know, like we just got to take care of the football, continue to move the ball and pick up first downs. You know, and I thought if we could do that and kind of just grind on them, I felt like we had the advantage there. So we like you said, we scored another one in the fourth quarter, and that kind of sealed the deal. But no, our defense did their job again. You know, anytime you put up a goose egg, it's usually a win for you, and it was. But they've kept us in the game the past 2 weeks, and it's kind of what we're relying on them to do. If we can get a little more healthy and the offense to continue to improve each week, I think we're going to be tough to deal with. So we're going to continue to work that stuff at practice, and health's one of the big things. Especially smaller schools, you got guys going both ways, and if one or two guys goes down, it can really change a lot of things for you. So we're just trying to get healthy. That's one of the biggest issues we've been kind of dealing with. But yeah, Shay, I know you talked on that earlier. We didn't really plan for that either. I called a timeout right before the play, and we just drew that up in the dirt. Told the guys what to do, and they did it. I thought Shay would probably bust through a couple tackles. I don't even think he was touched.
It
So
wasn't.
I don't know if the guys coming on the other side saw how big he was and didn't want a part of it. But no, I was happy for him. And anytime a lineman scores, the rest of the team gets pretty excited about it. So it was fun to watch.
Exactly. You've got the Jefferson Blue Jays this week. What is the game plan? And I'm sure quarterback's probably on your mind a little bit here, but give us a game plan for this week.
Again, defensively, I think we have to do a good job of keeping guys in front of us. They like to throw the ball a lot more than they have in the past. They have some athletes and they got some size, so that's their biggest advantage to me in my eyes. They're gonna. I think anytime they need a big play, they're gonna go to their big guys and try and let something happen. So their quarterback does a good job distributing the ball, and he's also pretty slick too. He's pretty quick kid, and he can run as well. So we're gonna have to be prepared for that. Then as far as offensively, we have to kind of put our kids in some good spots and try and help them succeed. So again, I think it's, if we can take care of the football, sustain drives, not make little mental mistakes, and stay on our blocks, I think we'll be okay. I think we can move the ball. So no, it should be a fun game. It was a tough game last year as well. So I expect the same as far as this Friday night.
Absolutely. Well, good luck to you, Coach, and hope you can pull out a win this week.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that, Ray.
Okay. Coach Blane Boss from the Herculaneum Blackcats. Hello and welcome to another episode of Upon Further Review. We have week 2 ready to roll here today. And if you haven't checked out Upon Further Review before, we take care of our week 2 and we'll talk about week 3 as well. We'll crown a brand new player of the week and also some honorable mentions. And we're going to get things started right away. As always, we have on the line here Matt Bates and Jeff Whitener. Matt, how you doing, sir?
Doing well.
Jeffrey, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. Got to spend the afternoon outside with the Jefferson softball team. They took it on the chin to Windsor, 13-2 this week, but they'll be back in action, and hope to see them soon.
We had the same situation over at DeSoto. Took care of Herculaneum tonight, 19-4. So that was kind of a little bit of a thumping there too as well. So let's talk a little bit about some football. And without further ado,
Speaking of thumpings, yes.
Speaking of thumps, yeah, some things. How about some week 2 results? So let's check it out here. Our live stream STL play, our game of the week, I should say. Herculaneum 14, Fredericktown 0, Louisiana 12, Crystal City 8, and Grandview 45, Bayless 8. We'll go by threes here. I'm going to turn it over here to Mr. Matt Bates to check his take on our game between Herculaneum and Fredericktown to start.
Well, I got to tell you, as we had seen and heard in the interviews with Coach Blane Boss, when you're dealing with your third-string quarterback in week 2, being your starting quarterback, it is next man up. And I would have to say the job that Braden Mattingly did, I think, as we said during the broadcast, was, when you're handed a bunch of lemons, can you make the lemonade? Can you make something else with it other than just, having those lemons sit there? 25 rushes, 136 yards. Only went 2 for 4 passing, but at the end of the day, a total of 54 team rushes for 246 yards, 4.5 yards a pop, which at the end of the day, when you look at the main, to me, the key of the game was the defense with only 31 collective total tackles. And you're going to say, wow, that's an impressive number. Well, in week 1 versus Windsor, they had 80 collective total tackles. So the defense being off the field, allowing the offense to be out there however long they needed to be out there, and just putting drives together instead of the 3-and-outs like they were doing in the 100+ degree heat, bringing the defense back out, 3-and-out, bringing the defense back out. It just seemed that Herky was just doing the best with what they were afforded that night.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, as far as me watching the game going back and forth, I was most impressed with the defense as well, Matt. These first 2 games, on the defensive side of the ball, of course, this opponent this week was not the same caliber maybe as the larger school was the first week in Windsor, but even with Fredericktown and even with their situation, they had a pretty sizable offense and defensive line, and Herculaneum did a great job in stopping them and stopping the freshman quarterback over there for Fredericktown. So it'll be a little bit of a different test this week, but we'll talk about that shortly.
Well, I agree with you, Jeff.
I
think
before we move on, hearing that Fredericktown broadcast the week before and seeing them in person and looking at their size, I just didn't think that. I mean, whether you had a freshman quarterback or whether you had a senior quarterback in there for Fredericktown, I just don't think the height of those receivers was used like they could have been used better. I was expecting not so much even the deep passes, but even over the middle to where you could use the height of those receivers. And when they kept just going to Catchings, who was having a hard time catching the ball, I I even looked, and I was just like, can they throw the ball to somebody else, but I think Fredericktown, it would behoove them going forward to just keep working the receivers that they do have, because they do have a good offensive core, but I think they pigeonholed themselves and just limited their play calling once, they were kind of up against the wall.
Agreed. Let's move on here. Louisiana 12, Crystal City 8, Grandview 45, Bayless 8. Any comments on either of these two games?
Really, my biggest take was the Hornets and the 45 rushes and the 270 yards that, for most teams, as we're going to talk about here going forward, when you've got the ball 45 times and are able to just do some sledding with it, that just tells you how tough that Louisiana defense must have been, for Crystal City to only get the one touchdown and the 2-point conversion. Louisiana, the 2 TDs, don't convert any extra points. That little toe stubbing didn't come back to bite them, and they just held Crystal City at bay. So, I mean, a tough way to start the year at 1-1.
Well, and really, guys, and I think Dan Fox would probably echo these sentiments, but this is developing into a pretty good rivalry game for the Hornets against Louisiana. They saw these two teams played each other several times last year. They'll probably meet again this year in the playoffs. And Dan Fox will tell you they probably should have won that game. The big difference, Crystal City turned the ball over 4 times in that game, and that was really the difference. When you look at how their offense was able to move the ball, how the defense played against Louisiana, that's a game that Crystal City, I think, looking down the schedule, wishes they had back.
All right.
And when you look at the next game, which is Grandview and Bayless, Grandview only rushed the ball 39 times for 225 collective yards, and they beat Bayless 45-8, where, Crystal City with the 45 rushes and the 270 yards, not much difference there, but Grandview's able to rack off 45, and Bayless just had no response. Nash Moore, I say only 16 rushes, 80 yards, but now the young man, he's tied for 6th in the metro area in points with 5 TDs, and Wyatt Kellum is right there tied for 5th in scoring with 38 points. He had 6 rushes, 56 yards, so it wasn't like you had one back doing a ton of damage. It was just a great collective effort, and the passing by Martin went 8-16, 2 TDs with a pick, so I guess dynamite in a small package, and Grandview was able to pull out the win.
Well, and Matt, I'd like to focus once again, as you said, quarterback Brendan Martin, and he might be someone to watch as the season progresses here. Only 8 for 16 passing, but 158 yards total. Granted, Bayless is not quite yet to the level of opponent that maybe some other schools are, but so far Grandview's come out and had a good showing their first 2 games against probably lesser opponents, but by the same token, they came out and took care of business. So they'll have an interesting test this coming week to see where exactly they're at in their progression.
Hillsboro 35, Cape Central 28 in a thriller there. Eureka 63, Hazelwood West nothing. Seckman 70, U City nothing. A couple of goose eggs there, but that Hillsboro Cape Central game, I'm sure you guys got some things to say about that one. Found out that one was a thriller at the end there.
Well, I can tell you what, guys, right off the bat, Cape Central is a much better team. Probably next to Jackson, they're probably the second best team in Southeast Missouri right now. They've come a long way in the last couple of years with their program and the players that they have this year. And for Hillsboro to go down there and knock off Cape Central was no easy task. And it bodes well for Hillsboro coming out the rest of the way. They're just more of the Brown and Brown show, guys. Preston, 11 carries for 113 yards. Peyton, 9 carries for 88 yards. Preston was also 10 for 17 passing for 149. So what can Brown do for you, Matt?
Well, you look at that PB sandwich, and once again, Preston Brown, as you mentioned, I mean, threw 3 TDs, 2 picks, but of that, this is again one of those odd things when you dive into the numbers and you go upon further review into the games. Completed 10 passes, but yet 7 different wide receivers caught passes. I mean, that's pretty amazing in and of itself. And then they were able to divide up the rushing, 40 total carries, 270 yards. So it wasn't like they were really dominating. What they did is they just put together a steady collective effort amongst the Hawks' available personnel, and were able to bring home a win against a staunch Cape Central Bulldogs team down there.
All right. Any thoughts on the Eureka win or the Seckman win?
Not really.
Right now, yeah, up 49-0 at the half. I mean, come on.
Right.
You had 3 guys that had 2 TDs: Alan Brown, Larry Reed, Cade Gustafson. He scored the 2 TDs in the third and fourth quarter for Eureka, but I think really your star of the game is Casey Hobelman, who 4 TDs passing. Now is 12th in the area in passing, and he's first in passer rating at a 182.778, which is literally off the charts when you have 7 TDs and 1 pick on the year. But Eureka, they took care of business against a Hazelwood West team that just had no answer for every punch that Eureka was throwing, Jeff.
I agree, Matt. Hobelman had a good game, certainly consideration for one of our players of the game this week, for sure. You know, Seckman, U-City Maplewood, I wish really that game wasn't on the schedule. They had to play that game. U-City and Maplewood, a consortium of 2 schools together this year, and they turned the ball over 6 times in that game to Seckman. Seckman was able to rest most of their starters in the second half, and it was just, you know, one of those games that you win, but nobody really feels good about it leaving the stadium, you know. So we'll just move on from that one.
And we will move on
Yeah,
here.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jeff. I mean, they were up 56-0 at halftime, but it wasn't like they kept feeding one back to make it like a stat show. No running back had over 5 carries, and none of those running backs, they were all held to under 75 yards a pop. So it wasn't like one guy finished the day with 50 carries and 590 yards rushing, but they did spread out the love, and once again, Seckman they took care of business after week 1 against Valley Catholic.
There we go. Speaking of Valley Catholic 20, Vesta 6, Parkway South 14, Northwest 7, Perryville 12, Windsor 0. Gentlemen, we'll start with Jeff.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, of those 3 games, I'd like to start off with the Perryville-Windsor game. I was able to go back and watch some of that. The kind of surprised at that game. Perryville finally did what I thought they should do, and they've got some big physical linemen, and they just lined up and they just pushed that ball between the tackles and kept running it down Windsor's throat. Windsor had 181 total yards offense, but they kept stalling out in the red zone. Had a penalty that cost them in that game, a turnover that cost them in that game, and credit Perryville for their, they just kept shoving that ball right down Windsor's throat, right in between the guards, right up the middle, and were able to get some big games from that. So a big win for Perryville, I think, in that game.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Perryville forced 4 fumbles, and Coach Brent Roth, on an interview I heard from him, courtesy of J98, they also had a turnover on downs at their own 1-yard line. So there was a lot of, I guess you could say, the proverbial give and take that, they created Windsor, to turn the ball over, and then also not able to punch the ball in from the one on 4 downs, kept that from being a little bit more of a score. But yeah, 1 for 3 passing for 4 yards for Windsor, and then 34 collective rushes for 172. I mean, Perryville just, gave them fits, and then the fact that they forced four fumbles on them. I mean, that's just.
And Matt, after last week, Valley Catholic losing on the road and coming home their first home game, you knew that Festus was in for a really long night if with Valley at home. And Festus had some bright spot. Essian Smith, 6 carries for 124 yards and a touchdown. Hunter Bates, all-around athlete. We know Hunter from baseball season, 49 rushes, 51 receiving yards. And on defense, Mason Shermer with 10 solo tackles, but not enough to stop Valley Catholic at home.
This was, Valley up 13-0 at the half, and it was only a 13-6 ball game going into the fourth. And Festus, 32 rushes, 283 yards, and as you mentioned about Essian Smith, even you take out the 68-yard run, he still had 5 carries for 56 yards. But Coach Judd Nager, again in another interview, he just said this was one of the toughest weeks of practice that he had in his tenure down there at Valley. That he just said the life was just basically sucked out of the team after that week 1 Seckman game. And he said it was just basically like watching a shadow of players just kind of going through the motions that I guess you'd say the proverbial coaches speak that, they had their nuts ran through the ringer. And, but again, that's what you get when you have a Class 6-1 team or a Class 6 team going against a Class 1 team. It's, you never design those on paper, but Valley just showed once again that, no matter what your size and classes, they can hang with you. And like I said, Valley, to me, I thought was going to be vulnerable possibly in this game. If Festus could have snuck one out, but I kind of figured Valley had a burr in their saddle after one of the rare opening week losses where they were 0-1 on the schedule.
Let's move on. Parkway South 14, Northwest 7. We already talked about that. Perryville, Windsor, we talked about that. Lafayette 55, Fox 25. Jefferson 42, Cuba nothing. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. Oakville 19 and Millville 9. Gentlemen, let's go with Matt first.
Boy, oh boy. Fox is one of those teams that I guess like the trivia question would be is, can you name a Jefferson County team that has close to 800 collected yards rushing? The answer is Fox at 792 yards. They're week 1 rushing of 420 yards against Clayton, and then here against Lafayette, 42 rushes, 372 yards, and they still lose to a Lafayette team 56-25. Just those numbers on paper. Aiden Smith, 15 carries, 142 yards. He's 4th in the area in rushing at 314, but he's only 5 away from the lead in first place at that. But they've got 2 running backs with 100 yards and another one with 96. So they have close to 3 backs with 100-plus yards. But Lafayette, the 335 passing yards, must have been just too much for that Fox team to handle as they were airing the ball out all over the yard. But, on a team that's averaging 8.8 yards a rush this year, you just see the tale of the two cities after their week 1 win against Clayton, racking off 420 yards, and then they only rack off 372 against Lafayette, and they're 1-1 on the season.
Yeah, the problem for Fox really is on the defensive side of the ball. And as you mentioned, Aiden Smith was a guy that I thought about this week, too. Strong consideration for player of the week. He's been a wrecking crew the first 2 games here for the Warriors. But, looking at some of these other games, Melville, Oakville, that game, Matt, was a lot closer than I thought it would be. What do you think?
I thought the same thing, too. Melville, they had the ball to rush, 45 carries, 208 yards. Oakville, they had less than 200 yards of total offense. So once again, when you look back at the Fox game, 42 rushes, 372 yards. Oakville ran the ball 26 times, had 141 yards, 4 passes completed for 51 yards. But it's like their first TD was a pick six. So right out of the box, the defense spotted them 6. Ethan Venable was only 12 rushes for 83 yards and a TD. So, once again, when you look at the numbers and you see stuff on paper, it's just one of those kind of smoke and mirror things where, Oakville at winning this 19-9, Melville, did everything they could do when they had the ball, you would think, unless there was some turnovers outside of the pick six. But yeah, 19-9, Melville, the Pirates gave them everything they could handle and then some.
Excellent.
Well,
excellent.
I guess we need to talk about the Jefferson-Cuba game, fellas.
Yep. Let's talk about it.
Jefferson goes down to Cuba. Cuba kind of in a transition mode right now. Jefferson did what they needed to do, take care of things down the road against Cuba. Quarterback Kole Williams, 8 for 12 for 245 yards and 3 touchdowns. Carson Hafner, the backup quarterback, out at wideout. And they also use him in a flanker. They can move him out, and you put him in a lot of different places. He had 3 rushes for 85 yards. Of course, Nate Breeze, we've called his name many a time in many different sports. 3 receptions for 119 yards. And also on defense, Carson Hafner had a pretty good game as well. This is a Blue Jay team that is built around their strengths, and they are utilizing that right now. And their strengths are in the skill position players and on the edge blocking. And anytime they can get a ball outside, and you'll see it whether it's at a flanker screen or they'll throw the ball out in the flat, or then you could put Nate Breeze out there and at a flag pattern. Anything to the outside, they're very successful at.
Jeff, as you are the voice of the Blue Jays there at home, and I know in that week 1 against Fredericktown, I had told you I had just listened to the broadcast and the way those passes that were being missed. You had mentioned that you felt that those were more intentional misses. Talk to us about Kole Williams and the accuracy that seems to continue with him. As once again, 8 for 12, 245 yards, 3 TDs. No picks, and you're now talking about the number 7 passer in the metro area. So it sounds like some kind of magic has worked with him from the beginning of the season, where has he found his niche, Jeff?
Well, I think last year he was put in a situation as a backup quarterback. He came in after the 3rd or 4th game, I can't remember, and took over the starting role. Carson Hafner, the backup, or the starter then, was a little dinged up. And Kole kind of slid into that role and really found his calling, not only from a quarterback standpoint, being able to execute the offense, but also a leadership role as well. And what I've seen this year is an evolution of him as these high school kids get older, maturing physically and mentally as well. The ball he's throwing this year so far is much better, with much more velocity and accuracy than he did in the past, for example. But that's to be expected as these kids get older and bigger and stronger. But he has learned to put the ball in a place where if your primary receiver doesn't catch it, it's not going to be intercepted. Now, he does have a couple of picks on the season. One was kind of a 4th down, throw it up towards the goal line, and it's as good as a punt type thing, if the other guy catches it. But really been impressed with him in his leadership of the team and how he rules that offense. Now, the big question for the Blue Jay offense coming in so far was the young offensive line and how long that would take them to gel. Now, I thought they might take a little longer. They're not a very large physical line, offense or defense. They are fast, so they are working in that offensive scheme with those strengths of being a very fast offense and being able to move some things around. You're going to see a lot of misdirection. You're going to see a lot of trap plays. So you're going to see a lot of screen passes, and that's how they have to be successful.
It is time for our player of the week from Upon Further Review. We have Kole Williams, quarterback over at the Jefferson Blue Jays. How you doing, Kole?
Good, how are you, sir?
Good, good, good. Hey, just got to say here, 8 of 12 for 245, 3 touchdowns. That's just another day in the office for a guy like you. But also 7 rushes for 25 yards. A big win over Cuba, the Cuba Wildcats, 42-0. Take us through the game a little bit here and tell us a little bit of what Coach was trying to get accomplished with you guys.
Yeah, obviously, the passing game was our big target for Big Day. A really good work for Bennett Pemberton and Nate Breeze for the 2 receivers that had the most receiving yards for them. They worked really well. The strong suit for us was obviously our O-line, giving me a lot of time to get past. Big credit to some of the boys, Mikey Frisk, Jake Watkins, and Wyatt Place. Those were some big blocks they had right there. And then the defensive game was amazing for us. I mean, obviously we love a shutout win, and it's what our coaches preaches us to work for. So definitely the defense gave the offense a lot of credit to it. So it was a big job for them.
Yeah, absolutely. You've only given up 6 points in 2 games, and a lot more on the offensive side as well. What do you think the key to that has been this season?
Yeah, it obviously has been getting our younger guys in for a lot of work. We had the strong suit last year of having a bigger team with a lot of seniors. So definitely the size and the strength has been a trouble for us to find. But, with a lot of these hard-working kids, from the sophomores to the juniors to some seniors who haven't played a certain spot, working for that is amazing to see. I mean, it's what we all wanted to have at the beginning of the season. So this is as much as it is. It's awesome to have.
Great, great. Got the Herculaneum Black Cats this week. It's always a good rival game there, fun rival game. What you guys have been working on this week, and maybe some things Coach wants to get accomplished this week against the Black Cats?
Yeah, the Black Cats have been good for their running games. Obviously with some of them losing their big senior star players last year, it has given us a chance to kind of look and see how the younger guys are going to take over it. We know they have a strong offensive and defensive line for this year. So our goal is definitely going to be trying to stop the run game and to work as much as we can to get them off.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I've got a personal question that I've been told. Your nickname is Coleslaw. How did that come about?
Yeah. So Younger, who is our counselor at my school, I want to say whenever we were real young, we had family around, and my grandma would make coleslaw as well. And so my aunt, who obviously is good with giving nicknames for everybody, gave me the name Coleslaw, and every time I see her, it's like, "What's up, Coleslaw? How you doing?" And so it's pretty funny. It's for me to hear. I'm used to it by now, so I always know who it is whenever I hear it.
Well, we'll make sure we mention Coleslaw during the game because we've got your game this week, so that should be a fun one. We appreciate the time. Congratulations on being Player of the Week.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it.
Hey, that is Kole Williams from the Jefferson Blue Jays. Excellent, excellent. Okay, last 2 games here. Sullivan 57, DeSoto nothing, and St. Pius X 74, DeBerg 14. Matthew.
I'm going to tell you right now, you talk about this, what do you call it, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever, that we go back to week 1, and you got DeSoto, DeBerg playing, and then in week 2, you got DeBerg and Pius. I mean, right now, you've got one young man from Bishop DeBerg, Keenan Thomas, 7 receptions, 277 yards. That's just a tick under, averaging 40 yards a catch on a team that is 0-2, that took DeSoto to overtime in week 1. DeSoto, that game, they had 46 rushes, a little over 200 yards rushing. But then DeSoto goes to Sullivan, and they get punched 56-0 right in the mouth, 34 rushes, only 20 yards on the day. So whether you had Eli Tebow running the ball or whether you had Tim Tebow running the ball, Sullivan had an answer for everything that the Dragons were throwing at him. But then you look at this Bishop DeBerg team that goes down to St. Pius, and Pius, 41 collective rushes, 463 yards, and they're the next team closest to Fox, 754 yards rushing on the season. Pius right now, like you look at those two games that they've had, like this week here, week 1 against Clayton, 291 yards rushing, and then 463. Coach Ray over there at St. Pius is just putting the boys on the carpet, lining them up, and it's next man, whoever gets the ball, we're coming right at you. This reminds me of old Herculaneum Black Hat football with Stan Helm.
I tell you what I see right now in St. Pius, first of all, I can't understand how they hung 74 points on the board. That's a whole other discussion for another time. That's I would like to know how that happened. I didn't get all the details for the game. But what I will tell you about this is Frank Ray not only is coaching with his chip on his shoulder right now, but he has got his players buying into that whole thing, and they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, and they are out and determined to show the rest of this entire county that they are the best small school team. And they will have probably their stiffest test coming up this week in Grandview, but they are a very dangerous team right now. Justin Lynn, 10 carries for 149 yards. James Smith, the quarterback, we know how good he is, 10 carries for 122 yards on the ground. Peyton Shaver on defense, 6 sacks in the game against DeBerg. That was a number that really stood out for me. So to me, this is a very, very dangerous Frank Ray coach St. Pius Lancer team.
Rutherford is the place to shop for your next vehicle. We have a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles to choose from, and they're all priced to sell. Not in the market for a new car? We have a great service staff that can keep your car in top shape. Also, be sure to check out our parts department for your next car project. Once again, we're Rutherford off I-55, the Herculean Auto Mall.
Family pride is driven home. Rutherford, Ruther.com.
And we are back here for our week 3 schedule. We're going to quickly go through these here real quick. And I'm just going to go through the entire list, and you guys just pick off what games that intrigue you here, okay? Our live stream STL player, our game of the week, I should say, Herculaneum at Jefferson. Our South game will be Windsor at Festus, Perryville at St. Vincent, Afton at DuBourg, Crystal City is at Bayless, Northwest at Seckman, Eureka is at Kirkwood, Lindbergh is at Fox, Fort Zumwalt West at Hillsboro, North County at DeSoto, St. Pius X at Grandview, Oakville at Webster Groves, and I will start with Jeffrey.
List here, yeah. Let's talk about our live stream game of the week on the regular live stream channel, Herculaneum versus Jefferson. 1-1 Black Cats come in versus the 2-0 Blue Jays. Jefferson has not seen a defense as good as the Herculaneum defense is. Conversely, Herculaneum hasn't seen an offense as good as the Jefferson offense is. Some people think this might be a low-scoring game. I talked to former head coach Alex Rugley today. He thought it might be a low-scoring affair, 3 or 4 touchdowns total in the game. I have a tendency to agree with that, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what Coach Boss can cook up on the defensive side of the ball. Herculaneum wants it to be a low-scoring game, put it that way.
Yes, I want to see how Fox continues to roll on as they take on the Lindbergh Flyers. Just interesting to see how that game shakes out. Interesting to see how Crystal City will respond after the loss to Louisiana. And then the Frank Ray team there with St. Pius, I want to see how they keep the ball rolling with that. And really a game that just intrigues me is just the DeBerg-Afton game, to where DeBerg, I think if they I mean, they're sniffing the end zone. They got punched in the mouth by St. Pius last week, and I think they're a team that, I mean, for a couple years, like they hadn't even scored a TD. So the last year and 2 weeks that we've been covering them, they've finally figured out how to put the ball in the end zone, and I think those little tastes. I think as soon as DeBerg can get a victory and figure out how to put that together, they might be a force to be reckoned with, because I know at least Keenan Thomas and Jack Masters passing the ball there for DeBerg, or at least two people that would have to have a say in how they develop as a team.
The other game, the big game, Matt, that I think is going to be this week is 2-0 Eureka heading to Kirkwood, and Kirkwood finds himself at 1-1. Now, this isn't the Kirkwood team of state greatness as a few years back, but they are still have a lot of weapons and can really give Eureka a hard time. So that could be an interesting game. I, like you, looking at Pius going to Grandview and seeing what will happen there. But see how much of a defensive struggle Grandview can make that game against Pius if they can slow Pius down a little bit at home. So that'll be one to watch as well, fellas.
Oh, I agree with Jeff that I think that the Eureka, the Wildcats, and the Pioneers, that's going to be a game between Eureka and Kirkwood.
The Breeze Dental Care Team consists of dedicated individuals who are caring, kind, and friendly. Our staff is here to ensure a pleasant experience during your visit to our office. Our team includes experienced and energetic people whose goal it is to communicate well with our patients and provide the best care possible. Providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic care. Schedule a visit by calling 636-937-3030 or find us on the web at breezedentalcare.com.
The House Bar and Grill at your Festus Pasta House is your place to watch all local high school sports live. That's right, I said live. Come in and enjoy all local high school sports brought to you live on our 5 big screen TVs from Livestream STL. Also enjoy our happy hour menu, which includes half-price pizzas, discounted appetizers, and drink specials. We are the best place to gather for your local high school sports, brought to you by Livestream STL at your Festus Pasta House on Highway A, where it's always a great time.
Let's talk about some honorable mentions here. We have Justin Lane from St. Pius X, 10 carries for 149 yards. Aiden Smith from Fox, 15 carries, 142 yards, 314 total yards. And Casey Hobelman from Eureka, 4 touchdowns, 7 of 9 for 145 yards. Would you guys like to elaborate a little bit on these guys?
Well, I think that we should throw Preston Brown's name out there again for Hillsborough. He had another great week as well, but Lane certainly part of the 1-2 punch in the backfield with James Smith, the quarterback for the Lancers, and he had himself a great game rushing against DeBerg. Aiden Smith, we talked about him in the earlier segment. He's been the workhorse in a very productive rushing offense for the Fox Warriors, and he continues to be one of the area leaders in that regard. 15 carries, 142 yards. Quarterback Casey Holman stepping in this year, Eureka, behind under center, his first year guiding the offense and doing very well thus far. Last week, 4 touchdowns, 7 of 9 for 145 yards. So Eureka is in good shape. You look at some of these teams, guys, your Eureka, your Hillsborough, your Seckman, those 3 teams who've had really good seasons last year look like they haven't missed a beat so far.
Matt, I totally agree with that, Jeff. Looking at Seckman, I guess you'd call it kind of like your powder puff game here against U City. We'd like to see, how they rebound as well. But looking at Aiden Smith, would like to see how he responds. And Casey Hobelman, I would just like to see how he continues to sling the ball over there for Eureka. Impressed with what he's doing. And Justin Lane, I think it's just going to be a 1-2 punch watching him and Aiden Smith as they continue to carry the rock
for their respective teams.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap things up here, and we have week 3 in front of us here, guys. We'll have some more upon further review next week, so we hope to you can join us, and we appreciate everybody's support. Thanks again for being with us here. For Matt Bates, for Jeff Whitener, Ray Halbrook, all of us here at Livestream STL, thanks so much for watching upon further review.